Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
A little background. I started working at a bike shop about a month after the lockdowns began. Bike shops were still open because they were considered necessary transportation. Anyway, I had barely any school and my mountain biking team wasn't practicing anymore, so I thought it was a good time to make some money. I arrived at the bike shop around 9 a.m. and checked in with the owner and manager. I was only allowed to work at the cash register and provide occasional customer service since it was only my second week on a job. The other employees got to work on bikes in the back, since a large part of our business was bike repair. The day was going smoothly. 2 people brought their bikes in for repair, and one family brought 3 bikes for their kids. But then she came in. This lady entered huffing and puffing, dragging her 2 kids, and one of their bikes was without a mask. I thought, oh no, I can't do this today. Could you put your mask on, please? It's store policy right now, I asked. To my surprise, she said, oh, sorry, I forgot. Thank you. What can I do for you today? I replied, I want to return my son's bike. It doesn't work anymore. She said that we don't allow returns on bikes but have a 1-month warranty that covers minor and easy-to-fix damages. Sorry, we don't allow returns. We will fix your bike on us if the warranty is still active. I explained. Fine. She huffed. Okay, we will need a receipt or proof of purchase. I told her. Couldn't you just look my name up? She asked. No, I can't. She rummaged through her purse for 5 minutes, finally slapping the receipt on the counter. There. I looked at the receipt and it was from 7 months ago. Sorry, but you bought this bike 7 months ago. I said that. So our warranty only covers 1 month of use. What does that mean? It means we can't fix it for free. Well, why not? I just told you. I began, but she interrupted in a very threatening voice. Just give me a refund and I'll leave. What? No. The repairs for your bike won't be very much, around $45. I explained. I don't want it to be fixed anymore. I want my money back. Ma'am, we don't accept returns on bikes. If you really don't want it anymore, you could donate it to charity. I've had it with you. Where is the manager? After she said these words, something even worse happened. I had forgotten about the kids she brought in. I heard the lock crash and looked up to see one of the bikes that was hanging from the racks on the floor. Oops, said one of the kids. What are you doing? I yelled. Don't talk to my son like that, the entitled mother shouted. Trying to recompose myself, I said, your son just knocked down a $4,000 bike. You're being so rude. My son didn't mean to. Right, baby? She said. Yeah, it was an accident. The kid replied. My boss burst out from the back, wondering what was going on. Why is that bike on the floor? My boss asked me. This lady's son knocked it down. My boss rushed over to assess the damage. The frame is cracked, he said. This was a carbon frame bike, which means if the frame is cracked, the bike is done. This kid right here knocked it over? My boss asked. Yep, I confirmed. He only knocked it over because your employee was harassing me, the entitled mother claimed. What? Both my boss and I said. Lady, I don't care why it was knocked over, but I trust my employee more than you. And I'm going with what he said. I won't make you pay the full price of the bike since only the frame is damaged. I will need $2,000 from you. My boss explained. What? Why do bikes cost so much? She explained. You don't have to pay it right now. We could arrange a deal for monthly payments. My boss offered. I am not paying for anything. You should be paying me for all I have gone through in this shop. My son did nothing wrong. It was your stupid employee who made it fall. She ranted. What? How did I make it fall? I wasn't even close to the bike. I defended myself. The other kid started to cry because of all the yelling. Now look what you've done. The entitled mother yelled as the kid cried louder. I am calling the cops for trying to cheat me out of money and harassing me and my kids. I looked over to my boss and he shook his head, indicating to let the cops come. When the cops arrived, she told her fabricated story of how we were harassing her and her kids and trying to cheat her out of money. She claimed I had knocked the bike down and lied about the damages to get money from her. She also said we rejected her when she tried to return a non-functional bike. My boss told me to let her dig her hole. When the police asked for our side of the story, my boss walked the officers into the back room and showed them security footage of her son knocking down the bike. He then explained our return policy and warranty. Finally, he showed them the damages to the bike, confirming we were not lying about that. She was arrested and had to pay much more than she initially would have had to. She also got 2 weeks in jail for resisting arrest and lying to officers. This is a story about my own entitled mother and the poor store that had to deal with her. My mom has a habit of taking hours to shop, even in the smallest of stores. We arrived at the store about 3 hours before they closed and started shopping. I had naive hope that I would actually be out before they closed. I quickly found things I liked, but my mom took a lot longer, looking at every section and every rack. When we finally got to the changing rooms an hour and a half later, I took about 15 to 20 minutes trying on clothes and showing my mom for her approval. My mom, however, took about an hour to try things on. She would stay in her room for 5 minutes before coming out and showing me, then go back in for another 5 minutes. I noticed the store clearing out and got nervous. Then I heard the 15-minute to close announcement and called out to my mom. "Hey mom, they are closing soon, we need to hurry," I said. "I know, I heard. I won't take long, just a few more pieces of clothing," she replied. I saw an employee start to clean out the surrounding dressing rooms. When she finished, she came to me. "Are you two almost done? We close in about 5 minutes." The employee said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, we should be done soon." Then my mom came out of the changing room with a few clothes in her hands and about 15 still in her room. "Okay, I am done now, but I don't want those. You can put them back now," she said. The maximum closing per room was 6, and I felt bad that I hadn't paid attention to how many my mom took in. I apologized to the employee who looked annoyed before following my mom to the checkout. You might think that we cashed out and left after this, but no. My mom then saw movie bins next to the checkout and decided to take a look at them. She didn't look for a particular movie, no, she wanted to see all the movies they had. After about 5 minutes, the closing announcement went off, but my mom did not move. She seemed immune to the words over the PA system. "Attention all shoppers, the time is now 8 p.m. and the store is now closed. Please bring all your purchases to the front cash. Thank you and have a great night." Nothing, not even looking up, she continued to rifle through the bins, looking at every movie. After a minute or two, an employee came up. "Ma'am, we need you to come to the checkout now so we can cash you out. We're closed." The employee said, "What?" My mom replied, "We are closed now, we need you to come and cash out." The employee explained, "You can't close until all the customers are gone, and I'm still here." My mom argued, "We're keeping the cash open for you, but we're closed. Please bring your stuff to the cashier and I will cash you out." The employee insisted, "No, you will stay open until I'm done. I'm a paying customer and I'm giving you lots of business, so you will stay open." My mom demanded, "Please bring your stuff to the front within 5 minutes." The employee said before walking away to start more closing duties. However, my mom did not take orders from anyone and kept going. "Mom, should I bring our stuff to the checkout so they can at least start bringing our stuff in?" I asked. "No, they can wait," my mom replied. "But Mom, they are closed. We should go," I insisted. At that point, the back lights went off. There were still lights on at the front of the store, but it was clear that the store was closed, and we should leave. "You know, they really shouldn't turn the lights off when there are still customers," my mom said in a passive-aggressive tone. "Well, they are closed and probably trying to get as much done as they can," I explained. "It's rude, I'm a customer and they should stay open." Finally, my mom gave up and we went to the cash register. I apologized to the employees, but my mom started berating them for turning off the lights. "You know, it's rude to try and force paying customers out. You need to stay open until the customers are done. Ma'am, we're still open enough to cash you out, but the store closed about 20 minutes ago. You need to stay open until I'm finished. You don't get to push customers to leave. The employee simply nodded and continued to cash out our cart as my mom went on about stores needing to stay open for customer satisfaction. Finally, about 30 minutes after the store closed, we left. As the employee let us out, I apologized again. Dealing with my mom is something no one should have to deal with. I moved out a few months after this incident about 4 years ago. I feel bad for anyone that needs to deal with her. I've had my fair share of difficult neighbors over the years, but none have been as entitled or troublesome as Karen. She moved into the house next door about a year ago, and from day one, it was clear that she was going to be a problem. Karen had an opinion on everything and felt a need to share it, often loudly and with a sense of superiority that grated on everyone's nerves. But things really started to spiral when she began targeting my kids. I have 2 children, a 10-year-old boy named Noah and an 8-year-old girl named Luna. They are good kids. A bit noisy when they play, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. They love playing outside, especially since we have a decent-sized yard. Unfortunately, that yard borders Karen's property, and she seemed to think that any noise they made was a personal affront. "Do they have to be so loud?" Karen would shout over. "Some of us enjoy peace and quiet." "Karen, they are just kids playing," I'd reply, trying to keep my cool. "They are not doing anything wrong." She'd huff and puff, but that was usually the end of it. Until the next time. Her complaints started coming more frequently. She called the police on Noah and his friends at least 3 times, claiming they were disturbing the peace. Each time the officers would arrive, see the kids just playing and leave was a warning for Karen to stop wasting their time. She even got an official warning from them once, but it didn't seem to deter her. One afternoon while I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, I heard a commotion outside. The kids were playing in the yard as usual, but then there was a scream. My heart jumped into my throat and I rushed outside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Noah was lying on his back, choking and gasping for air. Luna was beside him, crying hysterically and trying to help her brother. And there was Karen, standing a few feet away on a riding lawnmower and the fire extinguisher in her hands. Luna yells, "Mom, help! Noah can't breathe!" "What happened? What did you do, Karen?" "She sprayed us with the fire extinguisher. Noah couldn't breathe and fell down." Karen backing away. "I am sick of them making noise all the time. They needed to learn to tone it down the hard way." I did not waste another second. I dialed 911 and dropped to my knees beside Noah, initiating the medical protocol for asthma attacks that we have practiced countless times. Noah has had asthma since he was a baby and we always kept his inhaler nearby. But this was different. The fire extinguisher's chemicals had exacerbated his condition, and he was struggling more than I have ever seen. The operator says, 911, what's your emergency? My son is choking and having an asthma attack. My neighbor sprayed him with a fire extinguisher and we need an ambulance right away. Help is on the way. Is he breathing? Barely. I'm trying to help him, but he needs more than I can do. It felt like an eternity, but within like 3 minutes, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics took over, stabilizing Noah and getting him the oxygen he so desperately needed. I was shaking with the fear and anger, watching as they worked to save my boy. Karen, meanwhile, was still standing there looking almost smug. But her smugness didn't last long. My husband is a deputy and he happened to hear the call come through on his radio while he was on shift. He was at our house within minutes, and the look on his face when he saw Noah on the stretcher being loaded into the ambulance was pure fury. My husband storming over to Karen, "What the hell did you do?" Karen trying to back away. "I was just trying to teach him a lesson. They need to stop making so much noise." Husband didn't waste any time. He grabbed her, planted her face in the dirt, and cuffed her on the spot. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." He dragged her to the patrol car and then he followed us to the hospital where we were anxiously waiting for news about Noah. The doctors assured us that he would be fine, that he wouldn't suffer any long-term complications, but it was still one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. Karen didn't get off lightly. We pressed charges and she was convicted of multiple offenses, including assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, and attempted murder of a minor. She had a history of erratic behavior, and this incident was the final straw. In court, she tried to defend herself, claiming she was just trying to get some peace and quiet, but the judge wasn't having any of it. He told her, "You put a child's life at risk because you couldn't handle a little noise? There is no excuse for that." Karen was sentenced to several years in prison, and a restraining order was put in place to ensure she could never come near my family again. We were glad to know that she was finally out of our lives. As for us, we're trying to move on from the incident. Noah is back to his usual self, playing with his friends and making noise in the yard, just as he should be. Every time I see him laughing and running around, I'm reminded of how precious those moments are and how close we came to losing them because of an entitled neighbor who couldn't see beyond her own selfish needs. Backstory number 1. I have a working pantry, which means I have food that will last my family up to 3 months. It's food that we eat and use, so I'm constantly restocking and rotating it. I'm not exactly a prepper, but it does come in handy for emergencies. Backstory number 2. I've been in self-quarantine for a few weeks now due to my compromised immune system. No one outside our family is allowed inside the house, but we don't answer the door if we don't have to. We also have a Ring doorbell so we can communicate with people without answering the door. Backstory number 3. I used to coupon to the point that I could have been on the extreme couponing show. That's how I built up my food storage quickly. In the past, the neighborhood kids learned quickly that my mom had lots of snacks that I was willing to share. In return, their parents learned I had a very large food storage, which I never wanted to advertise, but oh well. I didn't think it would be a problem at the time. Yeah, I was foolish. I no longer coupon with the same intensity due to my declining health, but I do smaller trips, an extra can or two each grocery order to maintain my food storage. Sorry for the long explanation, on to the story. Our city is in the first few days of quarantine, schools and workplaces have been closed, but our grocery stores are still open, albeit wiped out and overwhelmed. Yesterday, the doorbell rang at about 9:30 a.m. I checked the Ring app and saw a neighbor's kid, about 5 years old, standing on my porch. So I pressed the talk button and said hello. "Hi," he said. "I'm here for the food." Confused, I asked, "What food?" "Mommy said you have food for me." "I'm sorry, honey, but I don't. I'm sure your mom has food for you at home." "Okay, bye." He waved into the camera and left. I brushed it off because that kid was known for making stuff up, so I settled back into the bed. Almost half an hour later, the doorbell rang again, and when I checked it, there were 2 kids standing there. One was the kid of my neighbor across the street, and the other lived on the street behind me. When I greeted them through the Ring app, it was the same story. Their moms told them I had food to give them. I quickly told them no and to go talk to their moms. They said okay and went on their way. While they walked away, I sent off a text to the 3 moms. "Your kids stopped by my house saying you told them I have food for them. I don't. Why are you telling them that?" The entitled mother number 1 said, "What about all of that food in your food storage?" "What about it?" "You have a lot. You can share." The second entitled mom says, "You've shared before." "Well, my food storage is enough for my family. If I had anything to spare, I would gladly share. But I don't." Then the third entitled mother said, "Well, you have lots of food." Again, for my family. The stores are still open. If you need food, you'll have to try your luck there. Entitled mother number 1 says, "Or we could just come over and take your stuff." "Yeah, I doubt you could stop us." All 3 know about my health and mobility issues. Try it and I'll meet you on my driveway with my shotgun, an angry Rottweiler, and my even angrier husband. "Are you threatening us?" "You threatened to steal my property, so I'm just returning the favor." "Which?" "Oh no, you called me a bad word. I think I'm gonna cry. I better drown my sadness by eating all these yummy snacks I have in my food storage." They didn't respond back, but I did hear from one of my other neighbors that the entitled mother number 1 was complaining to anyone that would listen that I'm a mean person for letting her kids go hungry. Several people asked her why she was trying to take food away from an ill person. I have several chronic illnesses that have me more or less homebound when she bulk buys at Costco every 2 weeks. She didn't have an answer for that and stopped complaining about me soon afterward. She did end up going to the store to buy stuff, but she was super annoyed because the lines were long, and she was there for about an hour. Update. For those of you who are wondering, we live in the western region of the United States, near the Rocky Mountains. That's all I'm willing to say. Preppers and people with food storage like mine are pretty much the norm where we are. But there are people like the 3 entitled mothers who don't prepare beyond their monthly grocery trips. It's just assumed that everyone here has some sort of food storage, but as a rule, we don't ask or talk about them. After my encounter with the entitled mother on Friday, I did not think much of it, but I did tell my husband, and he was not amused. Since my health has been declining, my husband has become fiercely protective of me. He wanted to storm over and rip into all 3 of them, but I managed to convince him not to. He did ask for screenshots of the texts just in case, and I happily sent them to him. Saturday night, after I went to bed early, the neighbor who had told me that entitled mother number 1 had been complaining about me, we'll call her the nice neighbor, showed up on my porch with our neighbor cop and spoke through our screen door to my husband. The nice neighbor said that she and several other neighbors were concerned when the entitled mother number 2 had admitted to threatening to come and take our food storage. I guess she was telling people that like it was some funny story or something. And our neighbor cop was there because he co-heads our neighborhood watch and is also entitled mother 2's brother-in-law. I've always gotten the impression that he and the entitled mother number 2 don't get along. Quick note, we have several police officers as well as firemen that live in our neighborhood. In fact, I have 3 different policemen living on just my street. The cop asked my husband if we have proof of the text conversation, and my husband sent him a copy. The cop thanked him and told him he'd be speaking with his sister-in-law later that night. My husband thanked them both and they left. This morning, Sunday, the cop showed up again. He told my husband that he'd met up with the 3 mothers and their husbands and sternly told him that with the screenshots my husband had given him, he could arrest the 3 of them for harassing and threatening me, and that if anything happens at our house, they will be the first on a list of people to talk to and/or arrest. I don't know if he just told them that to scare them, but he knows a lot better than I do, so I'll go with it. He also told them that he had informed the other cops in the neighborhood, and that they, as well as the neighbors who were concerned in the first place, would also be watching them and not to be foolish. So that's it for now, at least. The cop told us to call him if we have any problems with anyone, but I don't anticipate anything soon. He admitted to my husband that all 3 mothers looked terrified after he mentioned being arrested, and their husbands were furious at them. The entitled mother number 1's husband even asked her, "How could you think it was okay to threaten a sick person?" The entitled mother number 2's husband told her she was dumb for threatening someone who owned a shotgun. That's it. I'll update if anything else happens. This happened to me a few years ago. I had recently moved to the north of Scotland, where I now live, and was staying with my mom and stepdad while getting a house sorted. They went away on holiday for a fortnight, so they missed all the fun. I came home from work one afternoon, started at 4 and finished at 1:30 to find a car parked in the driveway into my house. Having a small car, I parked at the top of the drive, plugging them in. My parents live out in the sticks on a single-track road, so I couldn't leave my car where it was because I would have been blocking the road. After an hour, I saw someone approaching the drive and taking pictures of my car. I went out and confronted them, and the conversation went like this. "Why are you taking pictures of my car?" I asked. "Because you're parked illegally and blocking my car in. I'm going to call the police if you don't move your car from my neighbor's drive," they replied. "This is clearly my parents' drive. Did you not think it was odd having to walk out of someone's garden to get into the neighbor's?" I asked. "Well, it wasn't very clear, so can you move so I can get out?" they say. I got my keys and moved my car, then parked it and thought nothing of it. The next morning I left for work and once again found the same car parked in my parents' drive. This time I knocked on my neighbor's door and asked him to get his friend to move it, only for my neighbor to ask, "What friend?" I pointed to the car and told him what had happened the previous day. It turned out the person wasn't his friend at all but liked to walk around the woodland path near our houses. 20 minutes later the person finally appeared, smirked and moved their car, saying, "I'll be parked here tomorrow too." So once again I went to work early in the morning and when I got back, lo and behold, the person had parked there again. This time I decided to teach him a lesson. I had 2 days off, so I went to the shops and got some shopping and a rather large amount of alcohol. Strongbow and Savannah dry cider if you're interested. Got home, parked as close to their car as I could, making sure I was safely off the road. I went inside, made some dinner and started drinking. About an hour later, there was a banging on my door. "Yes?" "Move your car. It's blocking me in and my family wants to go home." I looked out and saw his rather embarrassed-looking family sitting in their car. "Sorry, I can't," I said, taking another drink from my cider. "I've been drinking for a couple of hours, probably over the limit, so I don't want to risk it." "What? Why are you drinking when you knew I'd want to move my car?" he yelled. "Well, I'm off for the next 2 days, so I fancied a drink," I replied. "I am calling the police," he shouted. "You do that," I told him before shutting the door and popping into the lounge to watch TV while also watching them through the window. But 2 hours later, apparently the police had trouble finding my house. The police arrived and spoke to the person before knocking on my door. "Yes, officers, how can I help? Why are you stopping this person from leaving?" I explained the events of the previous days and mentioned how I had told him he couldn't park here. I also explained that I had been drinking and was probably over the limit, so I couldn't risk moving my car. They agreed that I was correct not to drive while intoxicated and asked what insurance I had. I pointed out that it was named driver only, meaning only people whose names are on the insurance can drive my car, so they couldn't move it for me. "Come on, just make him move his car," the person shouted. "Just going to get the breathalyzer. Blow into this, please." "Oh, you're about 2 times the legal limit, so I'm sorry but you can't move your car," the officer said. "Sorry, but he's over the limit. You'll have to leave your car here and come back tomorrow," the officer told the person. "What? But how are we meant to get home?" he asked. "There is a bus stop about 2 miles down that road. You'll get the bus to the city at this time or to the town at this time," the officer explained. "But the bus doesn't go anywhere near where we live," the person complained. "We can call you a taxi if you want, but you'll need to pay for it." "He did this deliberately." "Yep, I did," I said amusingly. Fast forward to the next day, the police arrived with him in their car, and before they asked me to move my car, they decided to have some fun. "We just want to check you with a breathalyzer again." Big deep breath, the officer said. The person now looked more and more worried. "You're fine. Can you move your car, please?" the officer asked me. "Of course." "Don't park your car here again," one of the officers told the person. He couldn't even look at me, he just got in his car and drove off. And later that day, I decided to build a gate for my parents. When my kids were little, we used to tire them out on Christmas Eve by being really busy all day until bedtime. We barely sat down from breakfast to bedtime. One year, we went to a laser arena. It was quiet since it was Christmas Eve, and there were us, a family of 4, and another family of 4, including the entitled mother and her entitled kid. All the kids were around 10 or 11 years old. The game started and we adults too went off in the arena. At the end of the first game, the entitled kid was upset because he was at the bottom of the table with more death than kills. The adults were deliberately being bad at the game, ignoring the fact that the world's least stealthy kids were creeping up behind them loudly and giggling to each other. The entitled mother, however, was bulldozing her way ahead by shooting everyone inside so that her kid would not get shot. The problem was that once she shot us so that we could not shoot the entitled kid, our backs turned off. So the entitled kid's shots on our backs did not register. The entitled mother was scooping up all her son's potential targets and was pretty near the top of the board. Second or third if memory serves. By game 3, she was getting angry, which prompted the kids and the childish adults, including me, to keep shooting her. Rather than return to base to respawn, she used herself as cover so that the entitled kid could shoot from behind her. This was against the rules, and one of my sons pointed it out. She said tough, and let the entitled kid shoot him from behind her. At the end of the game, she was crowing to the kids and adults under the entitled kid on the leaderboard about how great her son was and how he was going to win. Any mention of cheating got hand-waved away with losers whining about rules. Game 4, we all decided independently on a truce and an entitled kid hunt. By the end of the game, he was back at the bottom with his mom. We covered all the exits from the spawn point outside the no-go zone to comply with the spawn point camping rules. The only deaths in the game were the entitled mother and the entitled kid, and the rest of us had all the kills. By the end of the game, she was raging at everyone for cheating, but the marshal insisted that we were playing with the rules, unlike her using herself as a human shield. We carried on for a couple more games while she was shouting at the staff for a refund. I do like the season of Goodwill. Nothing like the Christmas spirit to bring out cooperation between strangers.